Hello there, my friends. Welcome back to Carpo's channel, and I'm going to cover the topic of stress today. And I actually posted in my community section the other day. I know not everybody looks at those, but a little thing, mentioning that I was going to do this video, and if anybody had any specific questions that, they wanted addressed, that I would discuss that. I decided that I'm actually going to run a Patreon recording here too, since my recorder clips perfectly onto my chair. I was like, well, I might as well make one of these. I usually only make my podcast style recordings when I'm back in the office because I get interrupted by sirens, jets, whatever it might be. It's kind of like you don't realize the noise pollution level, and that's a huge stressor, not just because of videos, but just in general. We don't realize how noise pollution plays a role in our stress and anxiety. But I'm going to get into all of that. I'm going to talk about daily life and why we feel stressed, and I feel like I am an authority on the subject because we all are. And sometimes I don't want to talk about these things because I don't want to sound like a motivational speaker or something. But then I think, some of these guys I've listened to saying these same things are the ones who have inspired me over the years to want to talk about it with other people, because I know a lot of you are stressed out, and I know I get a lot of questions from people about personal questions about how to deal with certain anxieties in life. So the only few questions I got, I want to address those first. And I just kind of jotted them down here. In general, the three questions, one person said, basically, how do you balance like meaning and purpose in life and your career with the stresses and all the BS of having a career, I guess, in life. And that's a very difficult question to answer. It's one of the things that I've found is if you're not doing something that you feel is meaningful, it's going to cause more stress. And often the jobs we have cause us to feel like we're just kind of moving along and just one day in and day out. And it's been there have been a lot of menial jobs through the past, especially in, say, manufacturing and whatnot, where a person feels like they're part of a whole, but they're not really branching out and experiencing the full range of possibilities with their talents. And that's something that's very difficult. And I've always felt this way, which is why I've worked for myself for several years and always tried to be an independent, worker, contractor in construction, doing finished carpentry, making jewelry, selling, herbs, whatever it might be. I just want to be able to take care of myself because I have more stress working for someone else. But then I find that it's actually just as stressful working for yourself because you're dealing with clients the same way. So it really depends on what you're doing with your life as to whether it stresses. But that stress also pushes us to want to succeed. And I'll probably get more into that later. How to get up. The next question was, I think it was from Mr. Meeseeks. He says, in essence, how do you get up and deal with the same monotony and in and out bullshit of getting up, going to work, the daily routine and grind, coping with that? And I would like to say it's a multifaceted opinion to that. First off, routine can make it very monotonous and make time go by very fast because we're repeating the same thing day in and day out. And it's the experiences that give us time and the perception of the depth of experience and time in our lives. And that's just a very simple way of saying the more experiences we have and the more interesting things we do, the more memories we're going to make, and therefore we're going to be able to say, wow, this has been a crazy year, instead of, oh my God, this year just flew by. And often when we're working hard, that's really hard to do, to have the time to do that. But I would also like to say that even though breaking up the routine is great, having a routine is something many people would love to have. In other words, when you're just struggling to survive, like in a lot of countries, in a lot of places where people have to constantly move around, or they can never really settle down, having a routine is something we take for granted. In other words, if you can get up every morning in a home and you have food to eat and you can go to work and you can come home, you should be damn grateful for that, because a lot of people don't. I'm not saying you shouldn't yearn for more. I'm saying that teaching ourselves to appreciate what we do have is crucial to our happiness. And so the routine can be work for or against us, I guess. the next question was, and this one, I want to make sure the camera's rolling. Sorry. Well, that just screwed everything up, didn't it? Shouldn't have got up. I've always had issues. This camera is a piece of crap. I should buy a new one, but they just keep breaking on me. Anyhow, it's going, obviously. The next question, which was one of the most crucial ones, was how much does pharma play a role in this? The pharmaceutical industry. Not just in the illnesses themselves, but the deeper, making us think that we have more mental illness than we do. And this one cannot be underscored more enough. This is a huge issue. So much to the point where for the last year now, I've been working on this book about the pharmaceutical industry and how it's convinced people that they're fucked up from the beginning. And the more I've looked into it, the worse it gets. All the way back to Milltown, which was basically like Thorazine, a tranquilizer. Here, take this and just forget about everything. And they've placated our emotions. The pharmaceutical industry has made it seem like it's not normal to feel sad at times or to feel anxious. And the minute they convinced the public that those aren't normal feelings, people started hiding away and trying to obscure their anxiety and depression because it was considered a crutch. And so they figured, well, I better do something about this, so I'll take a medication. Instead of realizing, well, look, there is depression. I'm not saying pharmaceuticals don't help some people, but I mentioned it, this is all from a previous video where I talked about this, but for example, SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, they prevent your synapses from taking serotonin back up. That can help short term, but in the long term, your body stops producing as much serotonin, and the production slows down. So if you stop taking the medication, you end up with a problem. Or if you take too much of the medication, you have serotonin syndrome, where there's a lot of damage that can be done. But all I'm going to say about the pharmaceuticals is they're not well understood, and we know that our brains produce dopamine, acetylcholine. I have a whole list of things I wanted to share, but none of that matters really, in the sense that our gut produces 90% of our dopamine and serotonin. So the body's neurotransmitters and the brain's neurotransmitters are produced independently often, and so we can't measure them both and really know how these drugs work. So my thought is, I've always been a go natural kind of dude, and of course a lot of folks say that's just obscene. There's lots of natural products that will kill you. I'm like, yeah, I totally agree. Like one of my friends who always brings up arsenic. It's like, well, arsenic will kill you and it's natural. I say, yeah, but people haven't been smoking arsenic for 1,000 years like cannabis, or taking kratom for hundreds of years. Or when somebody when Mr. Meeseeks asked that question, how do you get up and deal with the monotony of daily life? There you go. Really high quality cannabis, right? Jack Rec. It's a great sativa. It's very uplifting, and one of many, right? So anyhow, those are the main questions that I was asked about stress, and I'm just trying to cover as many bases as come to mind here. I don't have a lot of notes to share, but I was preparing for a previous video, which was about decentralized internet, which I probably will never make or upload, but basically how everyone gives up their own information willingly to Facebook and then complains about the fact that their data is being used. But what's scarier are the people who just don't care if their data is being used, and that your data is valuable, that you're worth more than that. That, in other words, companies can hide away their information through protections and laws that protect their information. Think of it this way: companies can protect intellectual property, but you can't even protect your own intellectual property on a platform where you're sharing with information with, say, friends or family, and somebody's like taking your information and selling it to a company, and they're marketing to you because of it. Believe me, my wife has looked up things on her phone and said she was looking up how to get rid of some kind of pest or something, and then all of a sudden I started getting ads on my phone for the same thing, because they don't just target phones or individual accounts, they target entire households. And so it's pretty messed up. But we willingly give away our information, which is the reason I terminated Facebook. And if you're wondering what that noise is, I think somebody's splitting wood over there. Something always happens. But my two main points I really wanted to make before I forget, that I popped into my head, were two of the biggest things to deal with stress. There's one, learn to love yourself and stop giving a shit about what other people think. And that doesn't mean you don't care what your close loved ones think. Of course we're going to. But strangers just don't matter. What really matters is how we interact with our social circle. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter other people's opinions. That's not what I'm getting at. But rather, critics and people who are putting you down, telling you shouldn't live your life a certain way, fuck them. They don't matter. You've got to let that go and learn to just live life the way you best see fit, and keep learning. And number two is listen to music. Music is amazing. And I'm going to do a whole video about this, but actually Vox did a great episode. They have a Netflix special where they did this, they're doing several different shows with Netflix, which is cool. Congrats to them, you know. That's Vox, V-O-X. And they have some pretty good shows. One of them's about music and how humans can hear music differently, of course, than other animals. In other words, we can determine and differentiate pitch and harmony, whereas there are some animals that can groove, like they've shown birds to groove along to beats. Most primates, they have no knowledge of music, no interest in beats or anything like that. It's very interesting that music seems to soothe the soul. It goes way back beyond just nostalgia of listening to a song that we like. It's something that's within us from being kids. And so I would just say instill that in your kids, instill that in yourself. Try to get as much music. And you don't have to be a musician, you know. You can just listen to music and appreciate it. My oldest son is 25 and he's a phenomenal guitarist. And I had to put up with him playing like AC/DC songs when he was 9 years old constantly, and I thought, okay, that's what he's into. I mean, I got him into AC/DC. I like heavy metal and rock and roll and stuff, so it was fine. But when you hear your kid screeching when he's young, learning how to play, it's painful. But now he's playing amazing solos. It takes time, but the fact we got him into music, it changed how he interacts. Music is a language in itself. And it actually, it's been shown that kids who are musical can learn actual languages easier because they know music, and that in itself is phenomenal. This book right here, Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks, highly recommended. I've only gone part way through it, but Tales of Music in the Brain, and I can only say that it basically deals with how we interact with music on a level, and explains how certain hallucinations, how certain people perceive music. And it's briefly touched on in this book from the same author called Hallucinations. And this book is amazing. It really, he did a lot of studies into how the brain processes information and the different types of hallucinations that we have, and it's a phenomenal work. But anyhow, the last thing I wanted to do is read, because I don't want to go too much into dealing with, I could go on and on about stress, but I'm trying to cover some of the things that I think help. We're always going to have anxiety in our life. And I flipped through one of my old journals and I was trying to find something that I thought would help. And, what is that? Be sure of yourself not being sure of anything, and you will cease to be bothered by those claiming you don't know what you're talking about. For if you willingly admit your ignorance, yet search for truth, then your heart is true and can never be compromised by external judgments. Too many big words. These are very simple ones. My cat is begging to get out, but I'm going to finish this first. These are just some rules of living I wrote down a long time ago, and these are ones that I've found help to ease the burden of life and the stresses that come. Number one, treat each other with the respect you desire. Treat others with the respect you desire, and not the respect you were given by them or others. That's the golden rule, right? I mean, treat others as you want to be treated. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but not enough people do. They feel if they've been beaten down by society, they're going to fight back, and it doesn't help. It just makes things worse. Try not to judge, yet accept that your mind may do so without your consent. Observe. And that just merely means what it says. Observe your observations and your reactions to other people, and don't beat yourself up over a quick judgment. Just learn to overcome it. We tend to put ourselves down because of how we think. This is what causes loop patterns and loop thinking, which a lot of people are well aware of. You get negative thoughts in your mind and you can't get rid of them. Let them flow. This is what the dark side really means. Embracing the darkness. It's okay. Just let it go. The more we concentrate on something that we want to let go, the harder it is to let go sometimes. The next one is don't obsess over what happened in the past, learn from it. Pretty self-explanatory as well. Everything is a lesson. In fact, a lesson is how you transmute it into a value instead of a detriment to your life. We all know people who complain about something that happened to them in their childhood, in their adolescence, whatever it might be. There's always these complainers who haven't taken the lesson from the things that they learned. That may have been very mild things that they learned. Just let it go, right? Don't fear the unknown in the future. Embrace the present. And that's kind of living in the now, which I can't really even cover right now because it's a very complicated issue. It's not about just ignoring the past and the future. It's about realizing that right now is the only time you're truly alive. And the future will come. You can't predict what's going to happen. The past is over. You can still learn from it when you observe it, but don't obsess over it, right? Be tolerant of opinions, even when you believe they're wrong. There's always a reason for treason. And actually, looking back on that, what I mean is not be tolerant of opinions, but don't try to change or resist other people's opinions, because it's not worth your time. Tolerant means you put up with somebody's bullshit that you may not agree with. I believe that if we see something we don't see as right, we have every right to point it out. And tolerating things that we don't accept is nonsense. But in the past, I thought differently. And these weren't written down too long ago. I just used the wrong term. Embrace art, music, and creativity until you're confident your creations are worthy of you. And that's important to me. Playing music, listening to music, creating things, art, painting, writing, whatever. It's one thing when other people say, oh, that's great, that's beautiful. You want to make something to where you think, that's badass, I made that and that's cool. And that takes a lot of patience without doing it through ego or arrogance. And I think it's important that we embrace what we've created and like it. Whether it's kids or necklaces or tie-dyes, whatever it might be. Remember that children, adults, and elderly all share this experience of life, and none are wiser by age unless they earn it. And that's never truer than today. Where an 18-year-old can have the world at his fingertips and be very knowledgeable and academic, but not have the same wisdom as somebody who's older. In other words, living a long life gives you wisdom, but not all people earn that wisdom. Some people live in their little hidey hole, their little zone of escape, and they never really look into anything. Just because you're old and you've seen a lot of things in your reality doesn't mean you understand how the world works. So it's difficult, but a lot of young people are very wise. And they're becoming more wise by observing others. And if you are young, all I would say is observe your elders, listen to what they say, and take it to heart. Understand why people think the way they do. Because you can become wise at a very young age by observing what other people think are important. But your opinions will change, and that's okay. The next one is people who act spiteful are often fragile, and opening up to them can help you both. Closing down and retaliating only divides further. And that's basically love your enemy. And you can't always do it. I know there are a lot of crappy people out there. But I've met some people in the real world and on YouTube and elsewhere where they came across as complete jerks. And when you just say, hey man, what's the deal? Why are you so sad? Why are you upset? And do it on a personal level, not to embarrass people or to get a one-up on someone. Because if someone's attacking you, they're already fragile. They already have problems. It's obvious. You know, there are a lot of violent, hateful, mean people out there, but some people are just having a bad time. And understanding that can help a person at the right point in their life. And there's nothing more satisfying than talking to somebody and having them have an epiphany where they can change their life and feel better about themselves. Because the more we all feel better about ourselves, the easier lives that we will all have, in my opinion. Observe happy people and try on their thoughts. That's a good one, I've found. Look at what makes people happy, and a lot of people have this fake-ass happiness that I don't buy. So I'm not talking about the pretend mask. I'm saying look at people who really truly enjoy their lives, and seem to enjoy their lives, who are also intelligent and aware and, you know, care about the world and themselves and others. Say, wow, you know, what are they thinking that makes it work for them? Because we can learn from each other quite a bit. The next one is seek out archetypes and learn the stories. And all I'm going to say is mythology is an indispensable tool. Understand why we came up with the gods, the demons, the monsters, all the lore, all the tales that we have of the past. Read them all, and read, you know, the Odyssey, and get mythology books, because and Joseph Campbell is a phenomenal teacher in this realm. He had a great book, a few great books, but also some great lectures on YouTube that people have posted over the years. He passed away long ago, but the next one is never hide from what your heart knows is truth, but consider it carefully. That means go with your heart, but go with your mind too. You have to use rational thinking. If you just use your heart, this is how people fall in love with people who don't love them, and they never let go. So if you follow your heart all the time, it's been shown to fail us. So consider why we think the way that we do, but there's certain things that we can feel within ourselves, we just can't explain why. We just know. And this is where science kind of battles with religion and belief, is because science deals with things that can be tested, and certain knowledge appears to not be testable. And but that's my opinion. That means embrace what the unknown, and don't try to declare I know God exists or doesn't exist. Just me, you know, say, wow, this is amazing, and I'm going to feel it out and see what I can discover on my own. And never complicate life to the point you are unable to enjoy simplicity, like sunsets. Can't say enough about that. Sometimes we want so much more that we forget the beauty that's around us. And if you can't walk out in your own backyard and look at the flowers and enjoy it, then there's something we're losing. And the next one is watch every sunset and sunrise you can, which I guess goes perfectly in line with that one. Anytime I have the chance to see a sunset or sunrise, I'll take the minute to do it. We are just so short. We have so little patience anymore, you know, as a species. It seems like maybe we've always been that way, but really stopping to smell the roses is important. There's only 3 more. I'm almost done. Take accountability for your own failures, not just successes. God, how many leaders and losers out there just cannot admit that they've made a mistake. You know, I've made so many mistakes in my life. I mean, I try not to. They're usually small mistakes. I've been careful not to make huge mistakes, but I got myself in trouble before and done stupid things. And it's important that we take accountability for that. But so many people won't even admit mistakes, even when they were young. Even things that they did as teenagers. I mean, how could you not admit you were a teenager who caused problems? There must be something wrong with you if you've never made mistakes. But a lot of people want to take accountability for all the great things that they've done. Look at all my successes. Look at what I've done. But all the failures, they're just not even willing to discuss. And if they don't want to, that's fine. It's about you personally admitting to yourself your own failures. The next one is laugh at yourself regularly and life. And oh my God, I cannot stress this enough. If you can't laugh at yourself and make a joke about yourself, then you've got serious problems. You know, when you take yourself so seriously that if somebody cracks a joke or kind of pokes and prods at you, that you really get angry at them, then that's a sure sign to stress, a sure sign of anxiety. You're not going to be able to enjoy your life until you overcome what other people think about you, especially strangers. And the very last one is never try to force your views on others, just present them. I guess I also wrote care about things your peers care about, but that was for a different discussion. But never forcing your views on others is something that seems so obvious, but so many of us do it. I've had people yell at me because they wanted me to believe what they believe. I mean, that kind of stuff. Loved ones, people that I've known, people who are so frustrated because they think that something is so important as knowledge that it's worth getting angry about somebody not caring about. And I guess I can understand that when it comes to, people trying to protect the environment or trying to protect humans or animals or whatever it might be. They're like, people need to be angry. That's the old bumper sticker in the 90s. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. And I haven't seen one of those in a while, but I understood that, but that's kind of a youthful arrogance. It's if you're angry, your body's producing cortisol and you're not thinking clearly. It's proven that if you're actually angry, your brain's not working properly. So from there, maybe we shouldn't be angry, but rather concerned and aware and more empathetic. So can we turn our anger to empathy? In that case, I think we would turn a lot of our stress into curiosity. Because the stresses that we have in this world are caused by our own misunderstandings. And so I hope that answered a few questions, and I'm just going to let it go there because I don't want to keep rambling. Thanks for listening, and if you have any more questions, leave them in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer. Be well and take care, my friends. Peace.